2 hours, we're about at the 2-hour mark at the beginning of the first 4 hours. Within the 5 hours for the meal period, the second rest break of 10 minutes, and that last 4 hours between those two, the last 2 hours, in between the 4 hours of the end of the shift, in between that 2-hour mark. So, for instance, 10 o'clock, if you started at 8, 10 o'clock would be noon to 1 o'clock would be the meal, and then somewhere between 3 and 5 for the second break. Yes, ma'am.
How do you protect yourself as an employer or as HR payroll if you have X amount of employees and you're not required to have them clock in and out for their breaks, let's say 10-minute breaks?
You don't have to have them. Yeah, that's a great question. You do not have to because the employer is paying for the break time. The meal period is unpaid. So they don't have to clock in or out. Those are pretty good. They're pretty easy to defend. Rest period violations are very easy to defend. It's the meal periods that you want to be careful with. The only time a rest period violation will come into play is if you discipline an employee in any way for taking a rest period, or if you disallow them by saying, oh, we're too busy, you can't take your break now, and the employee wants to take a break unless you have specified periods. So you're saying at their own will they can take a break whenever they want to take a break, and you say, no, you can't, then you might have a violation issue.
Can you give a corrective action if they take a 12-minute break instead of a 10-minute break? No, because we have managers that actually want to do corrective actions for that, and you're like, okay, well.
Be careful with that because, again, they might get you on the timing of that. There's a pressure for us not to take a break because that could be construed as, they're telling us we really shouldn't take a break, or they're going to nickel and dime us on the 1 or 2 minutes, so now I'm going to nickel and dime you. You could, in essence. I don't know if that's a good big business practice. If you're talking about someone that's taking 15 or 20 minutes, I would say yes, that would be an issue. But you're, 11 or 12 minutes, that could be an issue with walking to the time clock. Because someone could say, I'm way on the other end of the building. The time clock is over here. It takes me that long to get from the break room to the time clock. There's a good argument there. So I'd be careful with that.
10 minutes away, outside, around the corner.
Right.
That's what they're required to take the break period. You've got to add that time in there too.
Right. You would have to add that time in there. So yes, ma'am.
We have truck drivers who clock in every morning and clock out at the end of the day because they're out all day. We do take a half hour out of their lunch. What do you do?
You need to have some kind of meaningful way of tracking that, whether it's I have a lot of drivers that have a driver's log, where they actually put in the time. The Department of Labor frowns upon those automatic lunch periods. And the same thing, they frown upon that, oh, I'm just going to put 12 to 12:30 every single day. Nobody takes their lunch at exactly 12. That kind of goes back to what we were just discussing with the 12, like the 11-minute, 12-minute break period. Nobody takes their lunch at the same exact time. The only case I know, I actually have a client that has a whistle, like the old, Fred Flintstone. Yeah. The whistle blows and everything stops and everybody goes out, and it's funny. But even in that case, when they're clocking out for their lunches, they have like maybe 2 or 3 time clocks, but they have 100 employees. So if everybody's taking their break at 12, is everyone really going to realistically clock out at 12 with 100 people and 3 time clocks? No. There's going to be 12 and 1, and that's going to vary from day to day. If you automatically take that time, you are running the risk of there being an issue with the Department of Labor.
Good chance you won't win that case if somebody does dispute one of the meal periods. Right. And they can dispute one meal period, and you could owe them up to 30 actual days of pay.
Right, for one meal period. They say, I didn't take, that particular day, I did not take a lunch. I was busy, I was running late on my route, or whatever it may be, and now you have, a failure to pay, which then equates to waiting time penalties. By the time it gets in front of the ALJ, it's going to the Department of Labor, it's going to be 30 days, in which case you would pay 30 days of pay.
That's 30 actual days. Which
30 actual days, not a month, like 30 actual days of pay.
What do you suggest?
Again, they keep a log.
I have a suggestion. We just installed GPSs on the trucks.
Okay.
So you can track them through GPS when they're idle, what have you. So that's
and that's a great idea. That might get expensive for some employers too. That could be an expense issue. That's
but
a great idea.
It also doesn't clarify necessarily that they were actually
had lunch, right?
we couldn't use our
Yeah.
GPS because it didn't log out lunch specifically.
Right.
They could have stopped at the gas station, they could have stopped at the water pump.
They could have been sitting in traffic for 30 minutes, you know, and not working. There's a lot of different things that can happen in that scenario, so.
But we can talk about that after.
Yeah, I'm gonna take
that's
2
an
more
act.
questions and then we're gonna go on. We've got 4 minutes, yes.
Okay, we have our employees out in the field at the end of the week sign a sheet saying, this is what I worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
And then at the bottom, we have stating that they've been given their lunch and their breaks. And then they sign it and turn it back into that. Do we have to write down their lunch breaks, or by stating that in the bottom, is that okay?
No, they still need to have it clock out and clock back in for every single day because the penalty is daily. Remember that. So it's for every single day. Now, great idea though. She brings up a great point. You definitely want to have some kind of written verification from your employees that states, I attest that I've taken all my meal and rest periods, that kind of thing. But that still won't negate the fact that if you have like a 12 to 12:30 every day, that there's not an issue there if someone disputes that. Okay. I'm going to take one more question and then we're going to go on and I'll be here to answer questions afterward. Yes.
I got 2 questions. On the driver's logbook, I have them that go all the way to Washington, all over. On their trip logs, do we have to have them put the breaks? They put their lunch in, but do we have to have them put the
No,
breaks?
you do not have to
Okay.
document breaks.
Okay.
Do not have to document breaks.
If, back to the rest period, 8 to 5 shift and you have them work an hour overtime, do you have to give them a break at 5 o'clock?
It depends on how much overtime they're working, then whether or not a third rest break would.
How much overtime would you have to?
Well, what is it? If they're, it depends. I mean, if it depends on, if it's only
Now,
a half
they've
an hour,
worked-
then no.
they've
If you're
worked-
talking about 10 hours,
then
it would be
10
at 10
hours.
hours. Yeah, it would be at 10 hours. So if it's only a half an hour, but when you get to that 10-hour mark.
If you went 2 hours, you'd have to give them a break
Third
at
break.
the end of the 2 hours?
Well,
Now,
it would
they
be
work
hard to
2
determine
hours
because-
from 3 to 5.
Let's talk about that offline. Let's get
Okay.
through the rest of it. We'll talk, I'll be.
That's gonna fall even with that whole, that's part of the whole rolling issue.
Yeah, that would be the rolling issue and it would be, so let's talk about that offline. And I know I had a few more questions, but I'll be here to answer that. So under Assembly Bill 1396, under written commission agreements, this goes into effect January 1st of 2013. This will require employers to pay commissions to, to have a written contract with the employee regarding commissions, include the method for calculating the commissions, and also require the employee to sign a receipt that's retained by the employer. The commission contract will remain into effect until superseded by a new agreement or the employee, or the employment terminates. Let me get a minute here. And even if the old plan of commission expires. So keep in mind that under this new law, you have to have a written agreement and it has to reflect when it changes, okay? Otherwise, that old agreement stays in effect until. W-2 reporting who and when for tax year 2012. You must include information on your 2012 W-2 if it's issued for 250 or more employees for the 2011 tax year. This includes non-eligible and part-time employees and not a year-end count. And for 2013, you must report all employees. This is a reporting that's required for all employers. This is with regard to health insurance, and I think I have some. Is this the different one, the old program? Does everyone have that in there?
Right, we don't, this one refers to call your healthcare provider broker.
Yeah, this is going to be.
This is having to do with healthcare reform. Just prepare yourself, 2013, all employers must report